intro to our speakers. I think you'll find these guys fairly interesting or very interesting, and I think they're going to talk to you about some of their experiences as well as some of the things they've been doing. Josh was just sharing with me that they were at a discussion yesterday about the PLA, a group that we talked about a little bit this semester. And maybe they'll add some more insight to what we have been discussing in that regard. This is free-flowing. If you have questions, let me know. I'll be running around. I'm going to be the mic man in the back. So if you have questions, I'm sure you guys want this to be a dialogue, not a
of course.
Discussion.
We prefer dialogues.
Okay, so do I. But that doesn't always work. It depends on how they're feeling.
No. It doesn't matter.
Are you guys all awake?
College. Are
you awake?
Okay.
All right, we won't explain it yet, but they're a good class. So, Elizabeth?
Hello. Is this on?
Yeah, you're not going to hear it.
You're not going to hear it. Just go with it.
Hi, guys. I'm Liz. And today we have two speakers, Joshua Marpet and Scott Lyons. Both of them are co-founders of Red Lion. So Red Lion is an information security consulting firm with access to the most talented hackers the industry has to offer. Joshua is an accomplished speaker, an information and physical security practitioner that has presented on topics ranging from facial recognition to national security. And Scott is a technical visionary who has actually graduated from Penn State. He has worked as the VP Business Development in war-collar industries and also places like Homeland Security and the Department of Defense and much more. So now I'm going to hand it over to them.
Thank you.
That actually wasn't half bad.
Yeah, really. Considering somebody forgot to send their bio in.
Well, listen, you got to present a challenge, right?
No, that wasn't. Never mind.
It was for OSINT. Come on, she knows what she's doing.
Ladies and gentlemen, hi. Nice to meet you. So you guys are studying cybercrime and cyber warfare, right? Okay. Does anybody know the latest incident of cyber warfare that happened? Latest news about an incident of cyber warfare that relates to insurance. You're like, what is he talking about? So a few months ago, this is one of my favorite stories. I love telling this. Zurich Insurance actually denied a $100 million cyber insurance claim for NotPetya. Does anybody know what NotPetya is? N-O-T-P-E-T-Y-A. No idea. It's called ransomware. You've heard of that, right? Good. This is lovely ransomware because even when you pay, you still don't get your files back. So it doesn't work very well. But because it's Russian-based, it was built by Russians, Zurich Insurance actually denied the claim because they called it cyber warfare. So if you want to think that cyber warfare is something that only happens in this incredibly rarefied strata, no, it affects every company around the world today, period. Okay? I want to sort of set the stage that it matters. Does that make sense to everybody?
Well, you know what also matters? Policy matters, right? Because when you're talking about cyber insurance, right, we've done a lot of research with insurance companies, and you would think that most companies offering error and omission and general liability for cyber would want to check who they're insuring, right? And it's really not the case, right? However, when you're dealing with policies inside of corporations, a lot of them have to be tied to compliance sets, and those compliance sets are what drives the policy, right? Wasn't there a story about a company that got breached, and they...
Lots of those.
Well, hold on. Remember the company that got breached where they had error and omission general liability for PCI, but they were actually, you know where I'm headed with this?
Cottage Health.
Yes, those guys.
This is a few years old.
Case study.
Cottage Health got breached, and they were very, very good at their security and compliance. They went to their cyber insurer and said, hi, we got breached. We have a cyber insurance policy with you. Pay up, please. Here's our claim. And the cyber insurer said, and I'll quote from you, come on in, it's cool. It's all right that you're late.
Thank you for joining us today.
Don't worry, it's okay.
Hi, I'm Scott. This is Josh. There we go. Now we're off and running.
The cyber insurer said, well, you guys said you were going to follow, I think it was a NIST standard. Instead, you followed an ISO standard. So we're not going to pay.
And you guys know what the difference is between NIST and ISO, right? Versus, you've heard of them at least?
Okay, good.
Right? We're not asking down in the weeds, do you know what's going on in those compliance regimes? However, you know what the difference is.
So the idea is that in their policy, which is a contract, they had said they're going to do NIST. Don't quote me on this, I can't remember one or the other, but that's basically, we were going to follow one policy, one standard, and then they actually followed another one because it worked better for their workflow, their business, you know what I mean? And the cyber insurance company said, guess what, you didn't follow the contract, we're not paying. So we're like, you're sitting here like, well, this is a cyber crime and cyber warfare class. What do we care about the stupid policy stuff, right? But it matters because you buy insurance so that if your house burns down, you get paid and you can buy a new house. You buy insurance so that if somebody breaks in and steals your Xbox, sorry, not an Xbox, it's PS4, come on, or whatever.
Next.
You can get new ones, right? So we have ways to hedge our liability. And it works for corporations, that's cybercrime. It even works for governments. Did you know that there's governmental insurance on various things? There is. It's a bit weird, but there is. But cyber warfare is covered under some very expensive policies, okay? But if there are so many loopholes, like I was a cop in Louisiana during Katrina, and when the insurance companies came around and said it wasn't a storm, it was groundwater rising. That's known as a flood. But they got out of paying billions of dollars of insurance because of it.
Yep.
If there are loopholes, if there are ways to get around these policies, you're going to screw a lot of companies and a lot of countries.
So what you're saying is it's not what you say, it's how you say it, right?
Well, no. That's good in verbal communication, but what I'm
Right.
saying is that read your contracts carefully. Now, why am I harping on insurance? I kind of want to make it real to you. Okay, that's why we're starting there. Making it real to you makes you realize that if your dorm burns down and you didn't have renter's insurance or your house that you live in off campus burns down, you have renter's insurance to cover your stuff, right? Or somebody breaks in and burglarizes, you have insurance to cover your stuff. But if your corporation gets a breach and you have cyber insurance and the cyber insurance is so bad that you can't collect, that's a problem.
And you're probably going to be calling us.
Does that make it real? Does that make it like a little more realistic to you that this actually matters to normal people? This is not just some, crazy weird thing that only government wonks think about, right? Does that make sense to everybody?
Wait. Is that a technical term?
A wonk?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's policy wonks, there's security wonks, there's insurance wonks.
Right.
Basically gurus.
I couldn't help myself. I'm sorry.
It's a term.
So at the end of the day, when you do get breached and you say, "Oh no, what do I do now?" Right? And we've had companies actually say this. People who call us, right? So I'm Scott. This is Josh. We're going to add on to your intro, which was wonderful, by the way. I'm the CEO of Red Lion. Right? Josh is the COO. We're both founding partners in Red Lion. We're a boutique compliance and security firm that services corporations between Fortune 5 to Fortune 5,000.
And government agencies.
And government agencies, right? So a lot of what we've talked about with the opening comments, right, has been focused around cyber war, cyber warfare, policies, procedures, and basically how you govern your business, right? But unfortunately, we've seen a lot of examples where companies have an absolute issue with trying to get this done, right? So out in the real world, right, there's what's known as the golden rule. They who make the gold make the rule.
Those who have the gold make the rules.
Yeah, well, it's some sort of a variant, right? And what that really says is sales rules the roost, right? So when you're looking at companies and looking at businesses, start with the money, okay? If you're in an audit role, where do you start with? Start with the money, right? Because everything else around the company, their widgets, their products, whatever you want to call them and classify them as, all tie back to the money. And then the rest of the business goes around that widget, that product, whatever it is, right? So more often than not, a lot of corporations and companies, from what we've seen, have sort of cantankerous sores, if you will, of despair. Yes, walk with me.
Okay, he uses the wrong words all the time. Just use your imagination, okay?
They have issues with the other groups that are around sales, right? On how the company grows and how the company builds, right? You get people like me using words that are just disparate and nonsensical, right?
You use that one right. Well,
yes, there we go. All right. I've been to school, I swear.
You went here.
Yes,
just so
I
we're
did.
clear.
So when
This
you're
is not boding well for the reputation of your school. Let's bring this back to cyber warfare, cyber crime.
So when you're looking at businesses, right? Being able to secure a business from the inside out or from the outside in, you have to look at it from not only an attacker's perspective, but also defender's perspective, right? So when you look at a business from the outside, what does an attacker see? And that's what you have to ask yourself, right? From does a business put hangers or decals in their car to is some C-level leaving envelopes out in plain sight, right?
And you see something through the windows. By the way, this is not a joke. When one of the first computers was brought into the Pentagon, I talked to the gentleman that did this. They took a boat out onto the Potomac, and they used a Tempest gun to...
Oh, I'm sorry, wait, time out. What is a Tempest gun?
Okay, before flat screens, they had CRT monitors, right, the tubes? And the electron gun would paint the in a raster format. It would go across like a dot matrix. Okay, I'm old. Anyway.
Yes, we know. Next.
Shut up. Like a dot matrix printer, it would print on the screen the lines and the characters. Well, those project a lot farther than you think, and from that building over there, I can read that. Okay. So what they went out on the Potomac and they read that. Okay, it's called a Tempest attack. Now you can't do it with flat screens anymore, which is great. Makes my life a lot easier. They read that, and they read the schedule of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, which by its nature is classified. So they walked in, and they're like, "Yeah, you know that computer you just started doing the schedule for the Joint Chiefs on? Yeah, here's the schedule." Like, "How did you get that? That's above your pay grade." Blah 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 blah. We were out on the Potomac. You see the boat that was out there? Yeah, there was a rowboat out there. Yeah, it sucked, you know. And they basically gave the computer back to Rand. That's how old this story is. It's from Rand. And the computer, instead of being this big, was now this big. Because it had classified information on it, they put it through the crusher. But they gave it back. That's the important thing. It was a demo model. They hadn't paid for it, but they gave it back. So the point is that there's all kinds of attacks. There's all kinds of things you can do. Cyber criminals, sorry, let's take this back. This class is about cyber crime and cyber warfare, right? What do you guys find most interesting, cyber crime or cyber warfare?
Feel free to speak up. Don't.
That was not rhetorical.
Yeah, feel free to speak up. Don't everybody answer at once.
By the way, you know that they're the same, right? What do you mean they're the same? Well, how many ransomware gangs were actually government-backed or government-affiliated? Most of them. How many Chinese hacking crews are government-affiliated? That's a really easy answer. All of them. Why? Because they'd be shot otherwise. That's not rhetorical or metaphysical or metaphorical in any way, shape, or form.
We hope the best for all of them. However, the likelihood is that something bad will happen.
I think I just mentioned the best.
Yes.
Anyway. So if all of these hacking crews are government affiliated, or most of the hacking crews are government affiliated, how about the U.S.? Are they government affiliated here in the U.S., the cybercrime gangs? Well, yes, but they're mostly affiliated with the Russian and Chinese governments. What interests you guys the most about cybercrime or cyber warfare? Show of hands. Anything? Anybody? Am I that boring?
I'm that boring.
How about you? I told you. I wasn't kidding. If you don't answer, I'll make you answer.
Here, use the microphone. Remember, we're on live stream. We got to get it.
Just like it's very hard to trace the person that did it sometimes. Like there's a lot of attacks that
Attribution.
Yeah, I had an interview question that was like, how do you find out who attacked you? And I didn't really know how to answer it because a lot of the times you can't really find out. It's like very hard.
90% of the time, attribution is literally a toss of the dice. And as a joke, somebody made attribution dice, and it says North Korea, Cuba, Russia, China. On all the faces of the dice. And it seems like they just chuck attribution dice at the wall.
The states, the nation states was one, and then what vector they used,
So it
was the next.
North Korea did it by a malware attack. It's like the game of Clue. It's ridiculous. Great question. Attribution is tough. Attribution meaning being able to trace back who did it, how they did it, why they did it, what they got out of it, et cetera. A lot of times what they got out of it and how they did it are actually not hard. It takes some work, but it's not hard. Who did it? Because you can bounce it off servers across half the world. I know US hackers, black hat people, that bounce it off servers inside of China.
Yep.
or bounce it off the Great Firewall of China, because they go, China, we're done. That's it. That's as far as you can trace it back. So they're like, nobody's ever going to get me.
So, funny story. We actually met a gentleman. I'm not going to say his name or what company he's affiliated with. However, we met a gentleman. We were at a conference this past week for security called InfoSec World. And we met a gentleman while we were there that said that the whole reason that he got into security was because his company was hacked from an insider threat by insiders who mimicked his website, who rerouted his email, rerouted his phone calls, started pulling off clients, right?
Basically, one of his trusted executives stole the company out from under him.
Yep.
Now that's not attribution, except that he took him forever to figure out who was doing it.
And how many attack vectors did he say that he was thinking?
10 or something.
I thought it was like 19.
I think it's a little exaggerated, to be honest.
It is.
We didn't examine it.
Not yet.
But the problem is that these insiders who were working for him every day had what he called their parking lot council every night to discuss how they were going to screw him over the next day. And they were buying domains through very circuitous means so that it would look like it was coming from elsewhere, so
Yep.
attribution.
Yep.
Okay. Somebody else. How about you? Lumberman, come on.
Well,
He's got the beard.
you know that's going to be your handle now, right?
That's fine. I would say just retaliation between different countries.
Ah, the hack
if
back.
they actually find
Okay.
out who actually did it through attribution, what the actual countries want to do. If they do have like a red line to, if there's something that goes overboard, like if they feel like they've actually been attacked, what are their policies for, an upcoming attack?
So that's hackback, active hacking, active defense. That's all those things, right?
Remember that we actually can talk about this a little bit. The U.S. cybercom attack on Russia's political stopping campaign in the last election.
The election stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you might have heard about the election stuff.
Never.
That was
I'm
great
telling
face.
you,
That was good.
it's huge, it's bigly.
I
I'm
know,
telling you.
That was good. That was perfect. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Just pour a little Kofifi
That was
on
great,
it.
man. Don't play poker with him. Okay. So election hacking is a big topic. Can we break into election voting machines? The answer is yes. Can we change the vote counts? The answer is yes.
What was it, an 11-year-old, 2 hours DEF CON? Something like that?
2 years ago at DEF CON?
Yeah,
was
about
it?
2 years ago.
2 years ago at DEF CON, an 11-year-old broke into a voting machine and changed all of the vote records. I mean, it was dummy data, but same idea. And I think it was like 2 hours.
Yeah, yeah.
And a trained adult did it in under 90 seconds.
Yep.
So while they were voting, they could have legitimately changed the totals on the entire voting machine.
Yeah.
Scary
Yeah, and not
stuff.
just and with the way voting machines are connected now, it's not just one machine. If you
you can change.
if
all of them.
you're at a network and you know what you're looking for,
Sorry, I'm clogged up today. It's all this wonderful weather you have up here. Just down in Florida the other day. So now it's like, look, we're in 80 degrees and it's beautiful, and now it's a little chilly and wet. Anyway, but that's just the election hacking, voting machine hacking. Now there's all the election stuff of
fake news and
fake
trying to
news
persuade public
and
opinion.
It's
and
actually easy. They're social science majors, as soft science as they are. I'm not going to talk about that, but they're having a
Not here.
blast. They're having a blast understanding that these are real life case studies of how you can change people's opinions, ideas, thoughts. They're noticing that there are legitimate research studies that have seen that the people that are on social media are more depressed. The more depressed people are, the easier it is to manipulate their emotions and their thoughts and their ideas.
Wasn't this covered under MK Ultra?
No, it's not exactly the same. I'm old. Don't
Whoever's watching the live stream is like, no.
But there are studies that have shown that the manipulation of an entire country is possible, and it's cheap. It's dirt cheap. In Vietnam, we sprayed propaganda across an entire country over and over and over and over and over again. And they literally had missiles, bombs that they would drop that were not designed to explode. They had a tiny bursting charge, but the bursting charge would spread leaflets over a village. Can you imagine how expensive that must have been? You got to fly the plane, you got the crew, you got a special bomb that you had to design just to get leaflets there.
How about
now, it's like, I got internet, click, done.
Sorry, I didn't mean to stop you there. I apologize. What about dropping off USBs to send to North Korea?
Wait,
you remember that?
We got to answer his question.
No, I don't want to.
Too bad.
Ah.
But this kind of thing, like, so US Cybercom said we need to combat this. Well, how do you combat emotional addiction to computers and manipulation of people's emotions?
Yep.
Well, we're going to attack them. What are you going to do? Wave your finger at them? It's awkward. It's difficult. So you've got attribution. Great. Did you two like plan this? Do you owe him $20 or something?
I think they did.
So you've got attribution. Where did the attack come from? If you can figure that out, then this is an attack on, let's say it's a straight up criminal attack, okay, because there are countries that do this. North Korea. And
I'm sorry, did you cough?
I did. And so they steal Bitcoin and cryptocurrency all the time.
Which is a scam, by the way.
Yeah, don't buy crypto. Please, God, don't buy crypto. Anyway, so that's another talk. Stop.
Yes.
But anyway, so the point is, once you can figure out who it was that did it, what should I do to them? I should hit them back. And everybody's like, you've got all these hawks and eagles and whatever they call war makers these days, the hawks and doves, and it's like, we're going to go after them. With what?
With really
You're going to send a missile with a nasty USB on it? I mean, what do you want to do, man?
You're going to yell at them with a really strange voice.
Yeah, exactly. So it's awkward, because if you actually hack back in a very straightforward and I'm going to say U.S. way, okay? Sorry, that's an act of war. Do you really want to do that? Do you want to commit an act of war?
Well,
no? What's wrong with you? Aren't you patriotic? Don't you think we should hit them back for what they did to us? Well, yeah, but do we really want to commit an act of war? Let me give you an example. Has anybody taken any political science classes? Okay, do you know what a weapon of mass destruction is? How many kinds of weapons of mass destruction does the U.S. have? Do you know? Seriously, do you know?
Pretty close.
How many?
How many?
How many types?
Oh, how many types?
Yeah.
I would say, well,
Officially.
chemical, biological.
Yes, we are. Officially, how many types of weapons of mass destruction does the U.S. have or could use in warfare?
Well, if you're going to combine them all, yes, one.
No. We are not allowed to use chemical, biological. We're not allowed.
Right.
We have our treaties and laws that say we're not allowed. Officially, the U.S. has 1, nukes, period. That's it. So we constrain ourselves artificially, and that's a good thing. Don't get me wrong. I'm really not happy with the idea of chemical or biological weapons. It's kind of rude, nasty stuff. Zombie plague, bad. I'm just going to say it, okay? But other countries don't have the same constraints. So when they attack us through some nasty little psychological warfare, election hacking, whatever, and we go, well, we should, because she said it. I got to go hit somebody for that, right?
No. We're not going to talk about that here. Stay on topic.
I am.
Okay.
When she says I've got to hack back, look how warlike she is. Come on. She's vicious, man. So I've got to hack back. I've got to perform active defense, right?
I'm sorry, he's just generalizing. Okay.
The U.S., the only way we can do that is an official, hack, an actual attack, officially. And that's an act of war. So the problem is, how do you moderate? How do you measure your response? How do you make it so that it's bad without going whack, drop the glove on the ground, yeah? What you going to do? That kind of thing.
10 paces and bang.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Bang is
But
pretty
it's
ugly.
not just, Josh, it's not just nation states, right? It's also corporations that have to worry about this as well, right? Even though we haven't seen a corporation yet attack back, the real question is, where's the liability and the risk? Okay, if you cause damage on someone's servers that affects their income, remember sales, right? Where's the risk in that?
To whom? The risk to whom?
Exactly. That's
No,
seriously.
What risk? What are you talking about?
Well, you've got attribution, you've got attack back.
I need you to explain.
Yeah.
You said, where's the risk in that?
Where is the risk in that?
To whom? Who's the risk to? To the person you just got attacked? To the attacker? To what?
Well, if you're coming out saying, I feel that you've offended me and I'm going to attack back, right? Where's the risk in that? Are you accepting the risk? Is the other company who originally attacked you accepting the risk? You know, really, when you're talking about cyber warfare and espionage, you know, how do you make that determination?
Well, and so if you bring this back to a corporate level, are there corporations that are attacked by nation states? Anybody? Yes, no. Who thinks that there are corporations that are attacked by nation states? Good, there are. How many nation states are attacked by corporations or individuals? Anybody?
Well, individuals.
Does anybody think that it happens?
Individuals, yes, but if you look at the government as a corporation.
You're pushing it a little bit.
Okay.
If you, okay, let me re-ask the question because I get interrupted.
Yes, yes.
How many people think that governments, nation-state governments, get attacked by corporations or individuals, whether deliberately or accidentally or unintentionally or whatever? Anybody? The answer is yes. And like sometimes it's unintentional. The U.S. government, for example, owns a lot of IP space. Every IP on the planet gets scanned about every 6 seconds. Okay?
How long does it take to scan the entire internet?
Well, I'm not saying it's done by one person,
Right.
but how long does it take to scan the entire internet?
Yeah, the entire internet.
How deep of a scan do you want?
Quick scan. Headers. Headers only.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah.
I think it's 4 days.
And you guys know what I'm talking about by headers, right?
Basically, the
Yes,
top
yes.
the top side of a website.
Yeah.
Just that it is a website. Just that it's you're pulling down that the website is there and what technologies it's using. That's it.
So
It's
about
called the
4
head-
days. Yeah.
About 4 days, I think.
Yeah.
I ran Nmap against, and I extrapolated, and yeah, it was like 4 days for the entire internet. We know people that have scanned the entire internet at various levels of complexity. Okay, so anyway, so every government gets their IPs scanned, their addresses scanned every 6 seconds by somebody or another. Is that an attack? Well, the courts have ruled that port scanning is not an attack, and it's legal to do. Okay, but how about attacks? Every time you put a new computer on the internet, if there is a vuln for that computer, it will be owned in about 6 minutes. That's the average time to ownage. Okay, if you take an older version of Ubuntu, and I tried this, and put it on the internet bare, no firewall, no antivirus, none of that crap, and wait, it takes 6 minutes for it to be owned. That's scary. Okay, so when grandma sets up her Windows XP machine and says, "Oh, I can connect it to the internet now," oh dear God.
Which we can totally see Grandma is still having Windows XP.
Well, I mean, that's what she knows. Why are you telling her not to have it? Come on, what's wrong?
Because ME was such a better addition than XP.
I need to kill him. Excuse me for a second. Okay. Sorry, we have fun. You have cyber warfare, you have cyber crime. Does it matter to you? Let me ask you a question. What are your career goals? Anybody? Do you have any idea? I want to do something with computers. I have no idea. Ask me what I want to do when I grow up. I think I finally have an answer. It's only taken me about 50 years to get there.
Yeah, when I was going through Penn State, I went through Penn State Harrisburg in the IST option, right? I wanted to go into project management, right? But I had a acquaintance steal all of the code for a final project right off of my machine and submit it as his. Yeah. So I had to go in and do the forensics on my own machine and show the professors, no, I wasn't there, try again. And that guy was removed.
Honor code.
Yeah.
Do it right. Look, they issue you one measure of credibility. If you lose it, it's really tough to get back, okay? Anyway, so in all seriousness, does anybody have an idea what you want to do with your life? It's okay. Any idea is cool. No? Okay. Well, there's a
What
lot
do you
of
want to do
choices.
with your life? Do you know yet? Because we know 40-year-olds who still don't know what they want to do.
Not really. Generally, I'd like to shape U.S. cyber policy.
Okay.
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 That's awesome. So you need to be taking some poli-sci classes.
Yeah.
You need to be taking some, how's your LinkedIn?
It's okay.
Good. How many connections do you have?
Well, I deleted it for a project once, so I'm back to 85.
Okay, 85 is not bad. How many groups do you go to? Like, do you know the local ISSA, ISACA, OWASP, DEF CON group, those kinds of groups? And if you want to do policy, you want to make sure that you're as part of things like the, God, I can't think of it. There are various meetups that handle cyber policy. You need to look those up. Sorry, there's a lot of resources you guys can use. And if you're not using them, and if you're not building up your connections, and if you're not building up who you know and what you know, this is what you know, these are who you know, hint, 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 okay, you're going to have problems. Now, sorry, that was my 30 seconds of career path guidance. But
The more you know. No? Come on.
You can hit him. I can't. I keep hitting him too much. They want to arrest me. I don't know.
Listen, man, you're being really brutal to that machine. I feel really bad for its CPU right now.
This is a monitor.
But it's on the machine.
Aw. Okay, so we've jumped a lot of topics. I've asked you about things that you're interested in. Does anybody else have anything else they're interested in cyber warfare or cyber crime? Yes.
You need the mic.
Zero-day exploits and
What about them?
morality of cyber attacks.
Oh, it's a great one.
Ooh.
Okay. So there is a company
Nice.
right now, I can't think of the name of it, that's buying 0 days. Okay? And they use them and sell them to penetration testers. Does
Yep.
anybody know what sorry, back up a step. So the question was 0 day exploits and the usage of them and the morality of them and the morality of cyber attacks. Does anybody know what a 0 day is?
This is where
Raise
everybody
your
should be
hand.
shaking their head yes or raising your hand.
A 0 day is
Yes.
an exploit that nobody's ever seen before. If you have a 0 day exploit, it's something new that I just came up with, and which means that there's no defense against it because nobody knows about it. The point is that the day you use it is the day that people know about it, and then they can start building defenses against it, right? But the first day, that's the day that you use it on everything, all at once. Why? Because that's the day I'm going to make the most money. Okay? Does that make sense to everybody? All right.
What was it, a couple of years ago? It felt like there was an O-Day coming out
Well,
every week.
there-
One O-Day a week.
The point is that the O days or the 0 days were coming out fast and furious because it was more along the lines of street cred. I built a 0 day for Office. I built a 0 day for Windows. I built a 0 day, whatever, okay? Nowadays, they're worth this. You don't drop them, you don't drop a 0 day anymore for street cred, for hacker cred, for whatever. You sell it for $1 million.
I mean, if you're doing it for the lulls.
No. There's a guy in Thailand who is a digital arms dealer. Not a joke, okay? And you tell him, he has a list. You say, I've got number 4. He goes, really? You go, yeah. He goes, cool, meet me in Thailand. You go to Bangkok, you meet him at a table in a restaurant. He has a laptop. You show him the 0 day. He hands you a bag full of cash.
Yep.
And I mean full of cash. Some of those 0 days have 7-figure payouts. Okay? Pretty cool.
If you could ballpark the total number of exploits that have been found.
I have no idea. Millions. Just ridiculous numbers. But let's stop for a second. No, seriously, stop. We need to talk about the morality. We got to answer the man's question. Is it moral to use those? Well, there's a legal company here in the U.S. Let's just put that the digital arms dealer dude is not exactly the most legal. I mean,
Maybe.
okay. But
Depends
there's a
on
legal company here in
jurisdiction.
the U.S. that is buying 0 days, and several of these companies have been tried. But is it moral to use those in a pen test? Well, if there's no defense against it, you're going to break in. How is there any possibility that somebody can defend against it? That's not right. Let's be honest. If you just want to win every time, yeah, I used a 0 day on you. And the defender's like, what am I supposed to do? There's no way I can win this test. It's like doing the Kobayashi Maru, okay? God, nobody knows what I'm talking about. I heard one chuckle. Okay, there we go. It's an unwinnable test. And if it's unwinnable, how can you score against it? How can I pen test a company and say, hey, you fail? They go, well, yeah, you used a 0 day on me. I can't win. It's not my problem. That's rude. Now let's talk about what'd you say, the morality of using 0 days? Am I correct?
The morality of cyber attacks in general.
Did you ever get in a fight in school? Okay. Was it moral? Okay. So is there supposed to be a morality for cyber attacks? I'm a little confused. Talk to me.
Well,
Mike.
I was looking at the perspective of the U.S. being a nation state and our morality of not engaging in cyber attacks, but at the same time using subterfuge to still do cyber attacks.
Like what? What do you mean?
Go deeper.
Come on.
Well, just say
It's a good question. Keep going.
hiring cyber criminals or justifiably doing the attack ourselves and using attribution ourselves.
Fidel Castro, mafia. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? The FBI, was it the FBI? Hired the mafia to kill Fidel Castro in the 50s. It was the 50s, wasn't it? We have a history of doing that kind of thing. Okay? Or was it the CIA? I forget. Anyway. CIA? Thank you. Okay. It's a 3-letter agency. Come on.
Someone who does not exist.
So, I mean, is there a morality to using cyber criminals to commit cyber attacks against other nation states? The answer is I have a real hard time with that. Perhaps in pursuit of a very targeted objective. I can understand that. But I have a real hard time agreeing with that type of tactic. But again, a lot of the details are above our pay grades and above our classification levels. Okay? We may not know that the target of that cyber attack was about to commit an attack against one of our nuclear energy facilities or our energy infrastructure, or one of the 17 categories of critical infrastructure here in the US, of which you're living in one, by the way. This is a critical infrastructure if you didn't know it. Okay, education is one. Why? Because we have this funny thing that we believe you guys will help as you get along. Okay?
Standing on shoulders, it's a thing.
We all stand on the shoulders of giants.
Yep.
Everybody goes like, hey, you guys are awesome. And I'm like, I feel stupid all the time. Does that mean we're awesome because we feel stupid? No, it means, we do pretty well because we stand on the shoulders of giants, the people that came before us.
Morality.
Actually, it's the hat.
The hat has its own Twitter handle.
It does. All right.
Literally.
Did that answer your question? The morality question is something that goes to a personal morality, a personal code. Okay? The morality question is something, do I believe it's appropriate to hack back? Do I believe it's appropriate to attack, not hack back, but actually primary attack? And the answer is very rarely. Very, very rarely. We get paid to do it. We do penetration testing, open source intelligence. We do all kinds of interesting security things. We're primarily a compliance company, but we have a security background, so we bring that across with us.
Yeah, we come from the hacker community.
I run B-Sides Delaware, which is a 500-person hacker conference in Wilmington, Delaware. We're staff at DerbyCon, ShmooCon, DEF CON, a dozen conferences. B-Sides DC, I'm on the board for. Okay, another B-Sides conference, a participatory hacker conference.
Yeah, and I was one of the original organizers for B-Sides Baltimore.
So, but we're on the white hat side, regardless of the fact I'm wearing a black hat.
Well, it depends on who's paying. No? Okay.
No, it doesn't. We're on the white hat side.
I'm only kidding.
And we don't perform attacks unless we're testing somebody's infrastructure. That's fine. We're testing them with their full knowledge, cooperation, and they're paying us because we like money. But that was a joke. No, I actually do like money to a certain extent, but that's okay. It's acceptable, right? But to do this as a living, to be a cyber criminal, the morality to them is their own morality. Morality is individual. Like I said, you get issued one measure of credibility. What you do with it is your choice.
It's just like the choice between being a white hat versus a black hat versus a gray hat. What I said just now was depends on who's paying. That all comes down to morality, right? Where do you find yourself on that line, right? What are your social effectors that have pushed you in that direction?
I also want to point out that in Russia,
we are white hats, by the way.
There are people that get a paycheck, wear a tie, carry a lunchbox, go work in a cubicle, have health care and benefits and retirement, and they write malware for a living. Mm-hmm. Because in Russia, it's legal to do so for the purposes of testing. What happens is that malware then gets sold to a company, which is just a little shade grayer. And it gets rented out to a company, which is a little shade grayer. And it gets rented out to another company, which is a little shade grayer. And eventually they're using it for crime. But the people that wrote it, they have service level agreements if there's a problem with it to fix it.
Yep.
Service level agreements. Like it's Microsoft Word or something. No, it's malware. But it's legal to write in that country. In Russia, it's legal to reverse engineer. Okay, so you build a program and you didn't patent it in Russia, they can legally reverse engineer it, build their own, and sell it. Okay, in China, I believe it's legal to reverse engineer as well. Even though they have a patent process, they literally, there are programs out there that I'm not going to name. I gave your professor a card to talk to somebody about this. Hopefully you can get a presentation on it. But there are programs to recruit university students and professors and workers at factories and design firms and whatever, to recruit them to take intellectual information, intellectual property, and send it back to various countries. Okay, PLA. And is that moral? To them, it's moral because they want to succeed.
But then when you're attacked, can you attribute it back?
The ends justify the means to them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? To us, we'd say, no, that's not moral, that's not legal, that's not right. But then again, we have to, back in the 1800s, the British called it the Great Game. It was the game of intelligence. It was the game of spyware, spycraft, and tradecraft. It was the game of we need to stay ahead of you, so we're going to do whatever we can to keep you down and keep us up. Steal what you have, give you misinformation, whatever. This question, this morality question, has been going on for hundreds, if not thousands of years. I have yet to find a satisfactory answer, nor do I expect to in my lifetime. If you're a patriot, you believe that whatever makes your country better is right. If you're an ideological zealot, you believe whatever advances your ideology is right. If you are trying to be fair, it's whatever is fair. But I'd love for you to define fair in a way that's epistemologically absolute.
You know, this country actually got its first taste of espionage back right around the time of the beginning of the Revolutionary War, right? So up in New York, the governor of New York was actually relegated to a British boat and was running espionage programs from the deck of the boat, right? And by the time that it was found out that there was this espionage going on, it was almost too late, right? The British were on their way. There was all types of strife going on in not only New York, but there was a skirmish in Boston, right? Washington's camp was down in Manhattan, and the governor, Tyron, who was on the Duchess, right, that was parked in the bay, right, actually had recruited Washington's closest people, his lifeguards, who nowadays you would call the Secret Service, 5 of them actually, that when the British got there, to assassinate all of the top generals of the colonial army. So
you're talking about, again, this is country versus ideology versus morality versus a lot of different things. I mean, going back to the Revolutionary War, we were supposed to send all our raw materials to England where it would be machined and manufactured, and then we'd buy the finished goods. And they'd make a crud ton of money on doing that, right? So we started building, in America, rifling machines for firearms and furnaces for actually refining the iron ore and things like that. Had to do it in secret, okay? And I grew up in northern New Jersey, and there's a town there called Ironia, and it's because all the iron mines that were there. And they actually built furnaces in secret in the woods to actually refine the iron ore. So the way that they knew how to build those furnaces, they actually went and learned in England and came back and brought the knowledge back with them. Today we'd call it intellectual property theft. Okay, and today we do it over an internet connection. Back then they did it by traveling for months and years to England, spending years learning and then bringing that knowledge back. Is that moral? Is that legal? Is that right? I'd love to hear your answers.
So you raise a really good, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm going to say...
And I'm putting you on the spot. Please understand, I'm not trying to be a jerk to you. But I want to point out to you that what you're asking, is it right, is an asking of an absolute. And absolutes are really difficult, man.
I was going to say yes on both counts, in my opinion.
Okay. So you're agreeing that intellectual property theft from another country for the purpose of advancing your country is okay?
Yes.
Any type of intellectual property theft?
Unfortunately, to blur the lines would only make it worse, so yeah, just keep it
That's a
clear-cut.
fascinating position. And I didn't do this to put you on the spot. Please forgive me. I'm not trying to be a jerk to you. Okay, I hope you understand that. But I want to point out to you guys that cybercrime and cyber warfare are not different things. They are at heart roughly similar things. The motivation is all that changes them or is the difference between them. Cybercrime is for money, right? Well, yes, but if I do it to fund a country's wars, is that not cyber warfare? Okay, I guess so. And so you've got a motivation question that is all that differentiates the two. And then you've got a morality question of, is it right to do? And again, does your motivation answer that morality question? If your heart lusts for money, and that's all that you live for, and you commit cybercrime, is that right? Well, by your lights, it is. By my lights, maybe not. And it gets really fuzzy. And I apologize, but you brought up the concept of fuzziness, and that's perfect, thank you. It gets really fuzzy here. So we have to set our own boundaries, our own code of ethics and scruples and morals. We learn them from our parents. We might learn them from our church or our shul or our mosque or whatever. We might learn them from our people around us and our friends. We might learn them from the government agency we work for or the company that we work for. But we have to decide where our lines in the sand are, where our Rubicon is.
And that actually raises a really good point. You know, what are the motivators for most cybercrime, whether it's nation state or corporate sponsored? Like, what are they? Give me one, at least one. Don't everybody answer at once. Go ahead.
Political intent and monetary gain.
Okay, say that one more time.
Political intent and monetary gain.
Okay, so that's two. Give me another one. You actually just answered it in the previous Q&A. Intellectual property theft.
That's okay. So that's money, though. I mean,
It can be and it can't be. Yes. No. Okay. It can be and it can't be. You know, another country may want to grab our intellectual property and then sit on it because we haven't released it yet. And when we release it, it's to go after market share and say that they released it first, right? And
Yeah,
sure, it may tie into monetary, but there's always another motive. It might be a derivative of that.
so let's tie this in a neat little bow and take it out
Please.
because we've only got a couple of minutes left.
Yes.
Effectively, we've talked to you about your own personal moral code, scruples, ethics, ideas, line in the sand, right? But countries have the same thing. Corporations have the same thing. Agencies inside of a country have the same thing. They have the way they do things. They have their moral codes, their scruples, their ideas. Whether they're going to commit an act of cyber warfare, an act of cyber crime, an act of cyber something or other, depends on those lines on the sand, those moral codes, those scruples, those ethics, right? Does that make sense to everybody? And while we can talk for days, and I mean for days, about individual incidents of cyber crime, cyber warfare, cyber whatever they are or other, and I mean days, if not weeks, months, or years, because we've
Cyber
seen some
all
of the
the
weirdest
things.
stuff that's out there that you can imagine. We've seen it. And I'll give you one teensy little tidbit. Does anybody know the average dwell time for a cyber criminal in a company? Dwell time means when they get in to when they get discovered. What's the difference in time? What's the delta? Does anybody know? Go ahead. 19 months, no, it's slightly less than that. It's about 310 days, last I heard. The Ponemon Institute tends to turn those out. Sometimes I believe them, sometimes I don't. Check their supporting evidence, which, by the way, is a good mantra for any study you read. Check the supporting evidence. If you learn nothing else from some of the classes you take here, learn how to read a study and make sure that it's real or BS, okay?
Yeah, and
but I
don't
mean-
just look at it and accept it and say, yeah, that passes my sniff test. Always dig deeper.
Dig deeper, because you would not believe the silly things that people do to get their ideas across. But that goes back to the morals and scruples. I want people to understand and believe my thing. I'm going to fake a study. I mean, is everybody here vaccinated?
I'm going to fake a Snapchat article.
Oh, dear God. Anyway, okay, so tie it up in a nice little bow. We work for companies. We live under governments. We might work for a government agency or a government themselves.
We're totally white hats.
We have to decide what we want to do and what is appropriate and legal and moral and ethical for us, because we have to live with those decisions. You will, in the course of your employment as an information security expert, be asked to make decisions that might go against your grain. At some point, you may get asked to do something that you decide, this is my hill to die on. I am not crossing that. I am not doing that. And if that is the case, you best have your LinkedIn updated so you can find another job quickly.
Yep, I'm Scott. This is Josh, and thank you for having us.
Thank you very much, guys. That was great. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, let us know when the live stream's cut. All right, so now what are your real questions? I couldn't help that. I'm sorry.
Oh, man, that was awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
That
no
was
worries.
awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, really great.
What-